Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at what I believe to be an absolutely amazing team for the Fossil Cup with Ferrothorn, Double Mud Boy. Ferrothorn on the lead is a pretty good lead, but its main objective is to take care of the other grass types and Pelipper and Jellicent. Shadow Quagsire on the safe swap is just an absolute nuisance to deal with if you don't have a grass type. It's going to be able to force switch advantage against pretty much everything if you can win the bait game. If you don't force switch advantage, you're forcing a shield advantage. And Shadow Swampert with a shield advantage in this meta, especially after the grass type is gone, is so good at sweeping games, as you're going to see. Overall, I went 15-2 with the draw as well with this team. It was not just very good, but also a lot of fun to use. I would definitely suggest this team for both climbing and for having fun. Let's take a look at the battles. Going into the first game, we lead into an Escavalier. Yikes. Very bad lead for Ferrothorn. We bring in Shadow Quagsire, and they respond with a Pelipper. This matchup I found to be IV dependent on the Shadow Quagsire's side. Because I have a very bad Shadow Quagsire, or a quite bad Shadow Quagsire, I actually need to land 2 baits in order to beat the Pelipper in the 2-shield scenario. Whereas with a very good Quagsire, you can make it 2-2 Stone Edges before they take you out after landing 1 Weather Ball. As we go for the CMP tie here, meaning they can just grab the shield with Weather Ball, and now we can't get off the Stone Edge. I thought I would be able to make it to another Stone Edge because you can do that according to the Sims, but my Quagsire simply isn't good enough, and we have to settle for the Mud Bomb because we can't make it to another Stone Edge, but we still have a shield advantage, which is pretty nice. Now we can bring in the Ferrothorn to just basically sacrifice it, because as soon as you know that the Ferrothorn is going up against an Escavalier, which we do know at this point because we have lost switch advantage, you can just sacrifice it basically, give a shield advantage to Swampert, and then take out the Pelipper with the Power Whip, bring in the Swampert against the Escavalier, they bring in the Jellicent. Now we can go up to the Earthquake, go straight for it. It takes 5 for the Shadow Ball, it takes 8 hexes for a Shadow Ball plus a Surf, so I think they're going to be able to get there. I can't go for the Hydro Cannon immediately here. If I go for the Hydro Cannon, if I shield up a Surf and then CMP tie them on the Shadow Ball afterwards, which I would be able to do with the Hydro Cannon, I get outpaced by the Escavalier. So I need to come out with some energy on my Swampert, and I need to actually come out with close to an Earthquake because you need some mud shot damage in order to be able to take out the Escavalier. So I have to call this move. It's only the Surf. Now we can shield up the second Surf. It takes 4-3-3 for the Surf, so there should be 3 away from the next one with this Jellicent. And we need to come out with close to the Earthquake. So we go for the full farm down. We farm them down just before they get there. Come out with an Earthquake. A Hydro Cannon is not enough from this range, but an Earthquake takes out the Escavalier. And that is a good game. Next game, very good lead into a Kingdra. And they swap into an Alolan Sandslash, a regular Alolan Sandslash. We can swap into Quagsire, go straight for the Mud Bomb. Our fast moves were misaligned, so going for this Mud Bomb means that my opponent only gets in 1 turn worth of energy, whereas I get in 2 turns when I get in that Mud Shot afterwards. So I would suggest for my opponent to go for the move immediately as they got to it. I didn't throw my Mud Bomb there because I thought they would go for the CMP with the Ice Punch, but they went for the Drill Run instead, so I could have gone for the Mud Bomb. I was expecting them to go for the CMP. So I had to go for the shield instead. They bring in a Quagsire. We can't go for the Mud Bomb before they be able to get to one. And now we'll be able to pace to another Mud Bomb. I try to go for the CMP tie here because my Quagsire has quite high attack compared to most Quagsires I find. So I win the CMP in most mirror matches as the opponent lets me get to another Mud Bomb, which they have to shield or just let their Quagsire go. They do shield up their Quagsire, but they're still going to have to throw some energy in order to take out my Quagsire. I don't really care where my Ferrothorn lands, but I care about my Swampert landing on the Quagsire. Like, I would rather have my Ferrothorn on the Kingdra than my Swampert on the Kingdra, which is why I didn't swap out, even though my Ferrothorn had very good matchups, like everywhere. We can go for the Power Whip before they make it to an Octazooka to potentially debuff us. It takes 17 Dragon Breath for the Octazooka and 20 for the Outrage, so they should be over the Outrage at this point as they go for the CMP tie. But even though Outrage is a huge move and it is stab, it just doesn't do a lot to the Ferrothorn. This is a very dominant matchup as we make it to the Power Whip, which grabs the shield, and we can make it to yet another Power Whip. I didn't want to risk letting them farm me down because they also have energy on the Quagsire, so I just really want to take out all this energy on the Kingdra, and now I can swap into the Swampert. They have quite a bit of energy on this Quagsire, and I'm thinking the only way I lose this is if they land an Earthquake. They don't have Earthquake, of course. They go for the Mud Bomb. They will be able to make it to another Mud Bomb. Even if they have another one, the Mud Shot that went through should take them out. So they're not getting it off. So we take that game. Next game, another very good lead with Ferrothorn into Lanturn. They swap into Golisopod. We have 3 good responses to the Lanturn, so we can't just stay in. This is a pretty good matchup for Ferrothorn. Another reason to run Thunder. There's the Pelipper and the Golisopod, and also if you see a Skarmory, we go up to the Thunder and then we bait with a Power Whip because Golisopod is just basically always shielding this move, I feel. A Thunder does about 78%, so yeah, I think they are pretty much forced to shield it. As we can take another X-Scissor, it takes 5, then 4 for the X-Scissors for Golisopod, and then we go for the Thunder to either grab 2 shields or grab or take them out, and then we can bring a Quagsire because now they have no shields, so now we can just land a Stone Edge if they decide to stay in. But I think their switch timer might have come up at this point. I should maybe also shield that Liquidation, does a lot of damage, and then they bring in a Ferrothorn, which is not ideal. We can make it to 1 Mud Bomb, and then I make a little bit of an unnecessary risk by going for the good timing on this Mud Bomb. We do get it off, but as you're gonna see, we only get it off with like 1 HP on that Quagsire, and that was definitely unnecessary. They get a lot of energy on Ferrothorn, so I want to absorb some of it on my own Ferrothorn, hoping that they would go for it pretty much immediately, and then not undercharge the Power Whip. I would have maybe undercharged the Power Whip, try to go for some more energy on Ferrothorn. I also brought in my own Ferrothorn immediately, because I know they're switch locked, and I wanted them to be switch locked as my Swampert came in so that I can shield once and then just farm them all the way down, come out with a lot of energy. If it's the Lanturn, I want to overfarm a lot because it's dry. If it's the Golisopod, it's close to a move, so I want to go for the Earthquake immediately. A Hydro Cannon does about 41%, an Earthquake from a Shadow Swampert does about 60%. We take out the Golisopod despite it being resisted, and then I make a huge mistake. Like, really huge mistake. I could take this. I could have flexed on my opponent. I could have just no-shielded that Surf, but I shielded it up. I didn't flex. It's not good enough, I know. The opponent concedes, we win the game. Next game, lead into a Shadow Mawile. Yikes, very, very bad. Swap into Quagsire, and they respond with a Katana. And I'm already envisioning exactly how this game is gonna go. They're just gonna shield their Katana, get switch advance, and have another Razor Leaper in the... Wait, what? They no-shielded it. We have switch advantage with Quagsire, and that is a good game. I don't know, I just found that game funny. Next game, lead into a Growlithe. Very bad lead, of course. This thing is a very fun pick, but yeah. We swap into Shadow Quagsire, of course, and they bring in a Jellicent. We can make it to the first Mud Bomb. Maybe should have threatened the Stone Edge. I'm a little bit dissatisfied with how I played this some of the times because I don't always go up to the Stone Edge. You do need to land a Stone Edge and a Mud Bomb in this matchup. Unless the Jellicent is very poor IVs. I'm thinking that my opponent really wants to keep switch advantage because they have a Growlithe on my Ferrothorn. So I go for the bait here, thinking they were going to shield it, knowing that they have to shield the Stone Edge. But they just no-shielded it, and then they didn't go for the Surf, so they give me a shield advantage as well, and then shield the Mud Bomb instead. I'm thinking my Ferrothorn is basically dead. Same situation as with the Escavalier matchup. If you don't have switch advantage, and it's up against the Growlithe, like, it's just dead. So I just tank the Shadow Ball on Ferrothorn, bring in my Swampert to get an energy head start, and my opponent concedes the match. Apparently they didn't have a response to Swampert. Swampert up a shield is amazing. Next game, lead into a Swampert, and they bring in a Ferrothorn. Very good lead, but of course, Ferrothorn is a little bit annoying to see. We have to stay in with our own Ferrothorn, and then start going for these Thunder. Power Whip is double resisted, whereas Thunder is only single resisted. If you have Flash Cannon on your Ferrothorn, that would be the way to go in this matchup. I have sometimes been running Flash Cannon in Ferrothorn metas because it's so good in the mirror match, but I think Thunder is way too good in this meta because of Pelipper and Skarmory and Golisopod, stuff like that. I'm thinking they have a Mud Boy in the lead. I don't really care if my Shadow Quagsire or my Swampert sees it. I care if they see it down energy or up energy. So I would actually rather lose this matchup with Ferrothorn than I would win it. So when they go for this Power Whip, I do make it to a Power Whip. I could CMP tie them and potentially win it here, but I just let them take me out so that I can farm them down, come out with energy on my whatever Mud Boy I decide. I bring in the Quagsire because it has better coverage against this meta with the Stone Edge as opposed to the Hydro Cannon Earthquake from Swampert, and then they bring in the Swampert once again. We can make it to 1 Mud Bomb, but they make it to 8 Mud Shots as we make it to the next Mud Bomb, so I'm anticipating they're gonna go for the CMP tie. And I'm just expecting, most people just go for the Hydro Cannon here. This opponent straight up throws the Earthquake and it just one-shots my Quagsire, which is really unfortunate. I was just expecting the Hydro Cannon, which might be a little bit silly, because now the opponent, like very nice play by my opponent, they get to the Hydro Cannon as well on my Swampert, then they bring in a Lucario, and these counters doing so much damage. We need to make it to 3 Hydro Cannons before they make it to 2 pops, or take us out with counters. They make it to 2 pops here, as we make it to 2 Hydro Cannons. And yeah, they win CMP, plus they would have probably been able to just fast move it down. And yeah, there's no way I'm winning that. Very nice play by my opponent. GG. Next game, lead into another Lanturn. Very good lead. We have 3 responses to Lanturn, so when they swap into the Pelipper, we can just stay in with Ferrothorn. This is where we want to see it, as we go for the bait with Power Whip, because the Pelipper basically has to shield this. But this is a bit of an awkward matchup, because Pelipper can win the 2 shields if they bait twice. And we shield twice, of course, so this is a bit bait dependent, as we shield a bait. And now we have to go for the Power Whip basically immediately in order to threaten them before they get to threaten us again. Although the Power Whip is not quite enough, it does put them very low if we land it. So I feel like it was the right play to throw it, because now we can make a decision. And we no shield a bait. They make it to another one. I think they are at the Hurricane now. So I think they could have maybe thrown it. They go for another Weather Ball, we let it go, and then go for the Power Whip, which they catch on Escavalier. Very nice play by my opponent, but this is actually huge, because the Power Whip puts them into a range where 1 Hydro Cannon is enough, and it takes 7 counters for the Escavalier to get to the drill run, so we can outpace to the Hydro Cannon, and because of that Power Whip, this will take out the Escavalier. We still have the Quagsire, which will be able to do very well against both Lanturn and Pelipper. They're probably going to bring in the Pelipper here. They have some energy on this Pelipper, so I don't really want to CMP tie them with the Hydro Cannon. So I go 1 over, and then I CMP tie them anyways, because Pelipper usually wins CMP here. But I'm guessing because of my AVs being quite bad, and their OEs being very, very good, then I actually ended up winning the CMP. We bring in the Quagsire, and they bring in Lanturn, and they know it's over, so they concede the match. Next game, lead into Quagsire. We have a lot of bad leads towards the end of the video, don't worry. I'm showing them in chronological order. They bring in a Lucario, and this is really not what we want to see. We don't have a good response to a safe swap Lucario on this team, which is one of the main weaknesses of it. Bring in Quagsire, which is the best response, because you can live 1 Power Up Punch and then get to 2 Mud Bombs still. So I decided to let this go, thinking it might be a Power Up Punch, but it's a close combat. But that means, because the defense is lowered, we can farm them all the way down with mud shots and get a lot of energy on Swampert. They go for another close combat. I might have considered going for the close combat a little bit sooner with the Lucario to give my Swampert less energy by lowering the defense. And then I make a huge mistake with my Swampert. Against the regular Quagsire, you want to go double Hydro Cannon. I was thinking about the Shadow and Shadow matchup, where if you land the Shadow with the Earthquake, it's very nice because it one-shots, but nope, they live it, get off the Mud Bomb, which we have to shield. We can overfarm a lot against this Ferrothorn, try to catch a Power Whip, save a lot of energy on the Shadow Swampert, as we don't catch the Power Whip because it's the Thunder. And now this is going to be close. The Quagsire doesn't have any energy in the back, as I try to CMP tie them to see who wins CMP, which might come in handy. We do win CMP against this Ferrothorn, which is nice. Which, of course, this is a very long, drawn-out matchup with the Ferrothorn against Ferrothorn. Not the most exciting, but we can make it to another Thunder before they make it to another Thunder, and put them into a Hydro Cannon range. We have 2 Hydro Cannons, but we have to make sure it's not caught on Quagsire. They can make it to another Thunder, but I don't think this quite takes me out. So I try to swap out to Swampert to go for the Hydro Cannon, but the switch doesn't register before too late, and then they somehow end up catching it on Quagsire. Nice catch by my opponent, I guess, but we can make it to another Hydro Cannon on this Ferrothorn, which will grab the shield, but they're going to be able to farm me all the way down, come up with a move. Now, do we have a move stored on Ferrothorn? We go for the Thunder? Yes, we do. We win CMP with 1 HP and a Dream, and this takes out the opposing Ferrothorn, and we end up winning that game anyways. Very close. Next game, lead into a Shadow Load and Sandslash. Bad lead for Ferrothorn. Not terrible, but bad lead. We have 2 better responses in the back. So we bring in Quagsire, and they bring in Jellicent. We go for the Mud Bomb, and this should do quite a bit of damage to the Jellicent. Not a lot, but yeah, very nice. And then I go for another Mud Bomb. I should really threaten the Stone Edge here, because this is just not enough. I don't know what I'm doing. They go for a move on alignment. They're at 6 Shadow Ball or Shadow Hex. Fucking hell. So I want to throw this move as soon as possible to either grab the shield or take them out, and then they go up to the back-to-back serves because it takes 4 then 3-3. I don't really want, if I shield this, I have to shield twice in order to get switch advantage, and Swampert down energy and shields against Shadow Lord and Sandslash is not a good place to be, so I would rather just let this go, take my shield advantage, and then bring in Ferrothorn to farm them down right before they can get to another move, then bring in Swampert against the Shadow Lord and Sandslash. But then they have a Golisopod in the back. We can make it to the Hydro Cannon before they make it to a Liquidation. The Golisopod does win CMP here, and they actually shield up the Hydro Cannon, and then they go for a move. A Liquidation only does about 55%. I think I can live it. We do live it. Just about, and then we can get off the Hydro Cannon to put the Golisopod low. I was thinking up 2 shields, Ferrothorn might be able to sweep this game, which is why I no-shielded it. But landing that Hydro Cannon was very nice as we let this move go, because an X-Scissor from this thing only does about 22%, whereas an Ice Punch from a Shadow Lord and Sandslash does about 31%, so those are the ones we want to shield. Also, they go for the Liquidation, and they get the defense drop, meaning these Shadow Claws are going to start to do a lot of damage. They do make it to the first Ice Punch. They have quite a bit of energy on this Shadow Lord and Sandslash. This is going to be close. I don't think one Thunder is anywhere near enough to take out the Shadow Lord and Sandslash, so we're going to have to make it to another move before they make it to 2 more Ice Punches. They do make it to another Ice Punch. Are they close to the second one? Can we make it to the Power Whip? I think a Power Whip is enough to take them out at this point. Can we make it? Yes, we can. I tried to make it exciting, but really they were quite far away from the next one. I hope you like this kind of commentary. We take out the Shadow Lord and Sandslash. Ferrothorn is an Lord and Sandslash counter confirmed as we lead into another Steel type in the next game. This is actually a bad matchup for Ferrothorn. So I try to catch a Flamethrower on Shadow Quagsire, and they bring in a Jellicent, so we can overfarm a little bit and then go for the Mud Bomb. And looking at the damage from this Mud Bomb, it looks like that Jellicent is not the best IV, so it looks like we might be able to get away with 2 Mud Bombs against it. I no-shield the Surf once again, and it is only the Surf, which is pretty nice, and then we can overfarm a little bit. They go for another Surf, which we can shield up. Of course, getting switch advantage here would be huge to get Swampert onto the Bastiodon. So we can go for 1 more Mud Shot, and then for the Mud Bomb, which they let go. They're 2 away from the next Surf, so we can farm them all the way down, come out with a lot of energy on Quagsire, overfarm a little bit more, try to make it as difficult as count for my opponent to keep track of energy. So we go for 1 more Mud Shot, throw the Mud Bomb right before they get to the Hydro Cannon, and now can we make it to another Mud Bomb before we get farmed down? Not quite. So they come up with a lot of energy on Swampert. We bring in the Ferrothorn. They snipe me with their Bastiodon. Very nice play. This is the Flamethrower, but it doesn't take out the Ferrothorn because Bastiodon just doesn't hit very hard. So we can let it go. Bring in the Swampert. That Swampert has a lot of energy, so these are not the moves we want to shield. Also, with this one Pokemon, Shadow Swampert doesn't really have to fear a charge move from. It's Bastiodon. Shadow Swampert really doesn't like charge moves, but a Stone Edge from Bastiodon is not that big of a problem. We can overfarm a little bit and then go for another Hydro Cannon. They switched out about 10 seconds before I did because the charge move animation is about 10 seconds long. So I look at the switch timer and think their switch timer is going to be up very soon. I don't want anything to happen with them, like being able to swap out, get off a move or anything like that. So I just go for the move immediately on the Bastiodon to take them out, and then we might shut down the Swampert, and that is a 5-0 set. And now we go into the last set of the day. Spoiler alert, we lose every single lead in this set, but it still goes quite well. Bring in the Quagsire on the Escavalier, and they counter swap a Razor Leaf Ludicolo. Very, very bad start. We go for the Stone Edge with Shadow Quagsire. Doesn't really do enough damage to threaten anything. Now, of course, we're going to bring back in the Escavalier or the Ferrothorn, and because they have an Escavalier, Ferrothorn is pretty much useless. The only thing we can really use Ferrothorn for is getting off some thunder damage against the Ferrothorn. So I want to come out of this matchup with as much energy as possible. So overfarm a lot, go for the Power Whip, no bubble it, to leave them with some health still, and then I'm going to farm them all the way down, come out with a lot of energy. I don't really want to give the Ferrothorn or the Escavalier any more energy than necessary, so go for the Thunder immediately to do big damage to it, bring in the Swampert, and now they bring in a Lanturn. There might be play here. Shadow Swampert does beat Lanturn in the 2-shield straight Hydro Cannon, no matter if it has Water Gun or Spark, so we can overfarm a little bit and then go for the Hydro Cannon. I thought I pressed it before I went over 100 energy. I don't know if there's some stutter lag, the game has been a little bit stuttery, or if I just didn't press the right button or something. I'm thinking my only win con here is shielding everything, hoping I can catch a move on Ferrothorn. So I shield up the second Surf, and then we go for another Hydro Cannon on this Lanturn. I kind of have to hope they shield this, but they don't. And I need to come out of this with energy, so I let them get the Surf off. Maybe I should have just gone for the Hydro Cannon. This Surf does a lot of damage. I need this energy for the Escavalier. I try to save it, try to catch a move on Ferrothorn, but the opponent just swaps in the Escavalier, and there's not really much I can do at that point, so I concede the match. Next game, lead into another Escavalier. We bring in the Quagsire, and they're staying in with the Escavalier. I've seen some people run Acid Spray, so I'm just a little bit afraid of that, so I no-shield it. It is the drill run, it does big damage. And then they bring in a Kingdra. I'm thinking we might be able to get to 2 Mud Bombs. It's gonna be very close, so we go for the first one, and we're not quite able to get off the second one, unfortunately, but we can bring in the Ferrothorn. And then I want to come out of this with as much energy as possible, once again, to threaten the Escavalier. Once again, this is really not all that good of a situation. They go for an Octazooka, hoping for the debuff. I don't really want to let them get to another Octazooka, because I don't want my Ferrothorn to be debuffed. So I just go for the Power Whip after farming up to 100 energy, and then I take out the Kingdra with the Power Whip. I would like to, because we've already done some mud-shot damage to the Escavalier, and you need mud-shot damage in order to put it into a range where one Hydro Cannon is enough, or a Thunder to put them into mud-shot damage for the, or mud-shot range for the Swampert. I might be able to farm them all the way down with Swampert after landing that Thunder. So we go for the Thunder, and it does big damage. We bring in the Swampert, they go for a drill run, we have to shield it, then they bring in a Lanturn once again, and we go for the bait with a Hydro Cannon, and they shield it up. Very nice. Now we can overfarm a bit, of course we have to shield this. The Surf does about 43% with the Sparks adding up. This is not comfortable. We can make it to another Hydro Cannon. We're baiting once again. And once again, the opponent shields it, but we're not going to be able to outpace to an Earthquake. We're going to have to take this Surf. I'm thinking the Escavalier is so low, I think I might be able to bullet seed it down with my Ferrothorn. I think it's low enough. We go for the Earthquake to take out the Lanturn. We get in one mud shot on the Escavalier. Now can we bullet seed them down before they counter us down? No, it's a simultaneous KO. Very close. Third Escavalier lead in a row. Can we overcome it? We bring in the Quagsire. They bring in a Jellicent. This is a little bit better. We overfarm a bit and then go for the Mud Bomb to do a little bit of damage to the Jellicent. And now they can do one more Hex and then go for another move. I'm thinking, because I'm up against a very good opponent here, someone that I recognized, I thought that they were gonna like sneak in the Shadow Ball or something like that. But no, they just go for the Surf. And now we can go for the Mud Bomb. I'm thinking they're really gonna want to keep switch advantage. So I go for the bait with Mud Bomb. And because they let me get to another move, I just go for the Stone Edge. Either I grab both shields and get a shield advantage, or we just take them out because they miscounted. So we get switch advantage. And now we still have a very healthy Quagsire, and we're going to be able to make it 2 in Mud Bomb. I would have gone for the Stone Edge if I didn't think we would be able to make it to 2 Mud Bombs, because I don't want them to be able to take the Mud Bomb and then farm me all the way down without having to expend the energy or the shield. So I went for the Mud Bomb thinking I could get to another one, and we can make it to another one. And here I have a decision. I feel like it was a little bit odd that it just gave me switch advantage. This is a very good opponent. I think they're capable of like, They know what they're doing. So I think they have another response to Ferrothorn. And they have a lot of energy. I don't really just want to sacrifice my Swampert. And they have so much energy. They're going to be able to make it to 2 Mega Horns on the Swampert. So I bring in my Ferrothorn once again to just sacrifice it. But my opponent goes for a drill run. And then they overfarm perfectly before going for another one, which just about takes out Ferrothorn. And now because they overfarmed so much, they're going to be able to get to yet another one, which we have to shield with the Shadow Swampert. It would do so much damage. Now what do they have in the back? They have a Kingdra. We can make it to the Earthquake. Shadow Swampert on a Kingdra. This is going to do a lot of damage. Is it enough to take them out? It one-shots the Kingdra, and we must shut down the Escavalier and overcome an Escavalier lead. Very good game. Next game, lead into another Steel type. Shadow Lord and Sandslash. We swap into Shadow Quagsire, and they respond with a Shadow Gyarados, and we go for the bait. If you land 2 baits in this matchup, you will be able to win the 2-shield scenario against Shadow Gyarados. So we go for the first bait, and then they go for an Aqua Tail. I was considering just taking my shield advantage at this point, but I shielded up. It takes the equivalent of 6 mud shots for the Gyarados to get to an Aqua Tail, so we can overfarm a little bit more, and they go for another bait. This is very risky, but they shielded, and now we can just about make it to the Stone Edge as well to get both shield advantage and switch advantage against this Shadow Gyarados with a little bit of HP left on the Gyarados or on the Quagsire. Now we can bring in the Shadow Swampert on the Alolan Sandslash, and the opponent just concedes the match, and that is a good game. Final game, we lead into yet another Steel type, Registeel. This time, Quagsire is greeted with a Pelipper, and once again, we go for the bait. And once again, they shielded up. It is a very, very risky bait to go for with Quagsire, of course, and if they no-shield it, it's like really bad. But I was quite, I don't know if you want to say lucky or whatever with the bait game, or maybe just, it is obvious there is a certain luck factor to it. But we go for the Stone Edge thinking that either I grab both shields or we just take out the Pelipper. So now we have 2 shields of an advantage for the Swampert, but the Pelipper farmed Quagsire all the way down, meaning they come out with so much energy that they're going to be able to get to 2 Hurricanes on this Ferrothorn. So we're going to have to shield it up. Swampert will have to throw 2 Hydro Cannons in order to take this out. So it's just a lot easier to shield up the Ferrothorn and then take them out with this Thunder. Now we can bring in the Swampert with only 1 shield of an advantage, and they bring in a Jellicent. This is a little bit bait dependent. We can make it from the Jellicents. We can make it to the Earthquake. There are 6 hexes. It takes 8 for the Surf plus Shadow Ball. I think they're getting to 1 of each. I have to make a call here. I know shielded. It is the Surf. We do live it. They can make it to another Surf, but we can just shield this up, and now we can farm them all the way down afterwards. Come out with a lot of energy on Shadow Swampert. They bring in the Registeel, and this Earthquake is going to do so much damage to the Registeel, and we mud shot it down, and we take that game. And that was a 3-1-1 as well overall, 15-2, and then with a draw as well with this team. Absolutely amazing. That was the last battle for today. And overall, this team was just so much fun to use, and it worked so well for me. Obviously, if you see a lot of grass types in the back, especially double Razor Leaf or something like that, be wary. Always look out for what you are seeing a lot in your battles as well before just taking a team and using it. Other than that, fun fact of the day, Ferrothorn beats Shadow Alolan Sandslash in the Zero Shield scenario with 2 Bullet Seeds advantage. So if you can swap out, come back in, get an advantage, swap back out, and then come in the end game, you might be able to overcome the Shadow Alolan Sandslash like I did in one of the games. Other than that, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. And of course, a massive thank you to the members of the channel. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time.